Models of Intervention in Clinical Social Work Practice. Chapter 7. Behavior Theory. Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, CBT. Behavioral practitioners are distinguished by their relative lack of concern with a client's internal mental processes and their focus on physical, observable, objective behavior. Behavioral practice is also distinguished by a commitment to the principles of the traditional scientific method for helping clients to eliminate unwanted behaviors or acquire desired behaviors. Three major approaches to behavioral therapy include behavioral analysis, a focus on the consequences of behavior; the stimulus response model, a focus on environmental factors that elicit and maintain a behavior; and social learning theory, which adds a concern with cognitive and mediational processes. Origins and social context. Behaviorism has been prominent in the social sciences since the first half of the 20th century, and it became a popular theory among clinical practitioners by the 1960s. Its rise was closely linked with the advance of logical empiricism, first in the field of philosophy and later in the sciences. A major principle of behaviorism is that all claims to knowledge should withstand testing and verification. Origins and social context. The first major innovator of behaviorism in psychology was Wilhelm Wundt in Germany, the late 19th century, considered to be the father of experimental psychology. He believed that the laws of cognitive and emotional experience could be derived with the same research methods that were being used to study human physiology. Wundt set up the first psychology laboratory for experiments with animals. Contemporary discussions of behaviorism begins with the work of Watson in 1924. He coined the term behaviorism, conducted experiments on humans, and brought the approach into mainstream psychology. Watson set out to establish psychology as a science. He believed that psychology as a scientific enterprise should seek to predict and control events, and that only objective methods enhancing two or more scientists to observe the same objects and events would further the achievements of those goals. Origins and social context. B.F. Skinner refined the principles of operant conditioning, and his many publications, some of which were geared toward general audiences, brought the behaviorism into the public consciousness. Behavior theory and its related interventions are prominent in the social work profession. The first social worker to extensively advocate for the behavioral perspective in direct practice was Thomas, who conducted research on intervention with substance abusers, couples, among other client populations. Major concepts. The basic principles and assumptions of behavior theory are as 1. Behavior is what a person does, thinks, or feels that can be observed. Inferences about a person's mental activity should be minimized because it cannot be directly observed. Clinical assessment should focus on observable events with a minimum of interpretation. 2. People are motivated by the nature to seek pleasure and avoid pain. They are likely to behave in ways that produce encouraging responses or positive reinforcement. It must be emphasized, however, that it is not always easy to determine what constitutes pleasure and pain for a specific client. 3. People behave based on their learning by direct environmental feedback and also by watching others behave and interact. And 4. Behavior is amenable to change. A prerequisite for change is that the behavior of concern must be defined in terms of measurable indicators. Major concepts. 5. Intervention should focus on influencing reinforcements or punishments for client behaviors. Consistent and immediate reinforcement produces change most rapidly. 6. Thoughts and feelings are behavior subjects to reinforce principles. 7. The simplest explanation for behavior are preferred. Practitioners should always avoid reification, giving life to esoteric concepts such as the ego, and searching for ultimate causes of behavior. Behaviorists do not offer a theory of human development. They do acknowledge, however, that genetic and biological factors are relevant to a person's sensitivity to stimuli and attraction to certain reinforcers. The nature of problems and change. All behavior is influenced by the same principles of learning, which include classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and modeling. No behavior is considered inherently healthy or unhealthy, or normal or abnormal. It is all developed and maintained because of a person's unique reinforcement schedules. Reinforcement can be understood as any environmental feedback that encourages the continuation of a behavior. Classical conditioning. Conditioning is a process of developing patterns of behavior through responses to environmental stimuli or specific behavioral consequences. The earliest behavioral research involved classical conditioning, in which an initially neutral stimulus comes to produce a certain response after being paired repeatedly with another stimulus. Classical conditioning plays a role in understanding many problems that clients experience. During intervention, the principles of classical conditioning are reversed. Clients learn to face each other's event or items on a list, starting with the least anxiety-provoking issue. An essential issue with any kind of conditioning, and one that presents a major challenge to behavioral practitioners, is that all significant other persons in a client's life must consistently support new reinforcement contingencies over a period of time in order to sustain a long-term effect. Operant conditioning. The main premise of operant conditioning is that future behavior is determined by the consequences of present behavior. The practitioner also pays attention to the antecedent or prior conditions that may trigger the behavior. Two types of reinforcement are postulated in this model: positive and negative. Both positive and negative reinforcement encourage the continuation of a behavior. Positive reinforcement encourages the continuation of a behavior preceding it. Negative reinforcement is the process by which an aversive event is terminated by the individual's behavior, and therefore the behavior is reinforced. In practice, clients are helped to seek out behaviors that offer alternative reinforcements, that is, other activities such as relationships, work, or hobbies, so they will not be as prone to indulge in problem behavior. Operant conditioning principles can also be enacted when people assume environmental control over the behaviors of others. Modeling. People also learn behaviors by modeling or watching others engage in behaviors and being reinforced or punished for them. Modeling is a pervasive means of learning for all people, but especially children and adolescents. Along with didactic instruction and discussion, modeling is a chief method of behavior change. In modeling, the practitioner shows the client how to enact a new behavior. The client then practices the new behavior, called behavioral rehearsal, receiving supportive feedback and suggestions for its refinement. Modeling. Covert modeling can also be used for intervention purposes. In covert rehearsal, the social worker guides the client through a process of imagining the completion of steps towards a successful outcome. Practitioners tend to prefer coping, satisfactory progress, rather than mastery, perfection, approaches to behavioral change through modeling and rehearsal. Coping more openly manifests the struggles that a person might expect when performing the new behavior, including the free expression of anxiety, hesitation, and making errors. Clients identify more easily with a coping model. All situations in which people find themselves, except for truly novel ones, cues or prompt behaviors based on principles of classical conditioning, paired associations with certain aspects of the setting, operant conditioning, prior experiences in similar situations, or modeling, watching others behave and receive feedback. Modeling. The goal of behavioral intervention can be stated rather simply: to change behavior. This is accomplished through the use of reinforcers and punishments. The social worker helps the client achieve new, desirable behaviors by manipulating the environment to alter reinforcement patterns, or by providing new opportunities for positive modeling. One of the challenges in behavior therapy is to identify the specific antecedent conditions and responses that are reinforcing to the client from among the numerous influences on the client's behavior. Assessment and intervention. Assessment: the social worker-client relationship. Although behavior therapy is highly structured, the importance of a positive social worker-client relationship should not be underestimated. The social worker needs to be perceived as a competent, caring, and trustworthy, because he or she will be encouraging the client to engage in some behavior that will feel uncomfortable and sometimes threatening. Further, the behavior of both parties in the practice relationship is subject to the same conditioning principles. The practitioner's empathic understanding will facilitate these conditions. The social worker must be careful not to use punishing behaviors with the client, at least initially, as these tend to be alienating and result in a loss of his or her perceived reinforcing potential. The social worker must be collaborative with the client as they devise intervention strategies, because the client needs to have a strong investment in change strategies. After orientating the client to the principles of behavioral intervention, the practitioner can perform a comprehensive assessment through functional behavior analysis. First, the client problem behavior is specified as clearly and concretely as possible. Next, the environmental conditions, cues, that enhance or maintain the behavior are identified. And finally, the consequences of the behavior are considered. Assessment, the social worker-client relationship. Listed are examples of the type of questions the social worker asks during assessments. 1. When do you experience the behavior? 2. Where do you experience the behavior? 3. Who are you with when the behavior occurs? 4. How long does the behavior typically last? 5. What happens immediately after the behavior occurs? 6. That is, what do you do? Or 7. What does someone else do to or with you? Assessment, the social worker-client relationship. 8. What bodily reactions do you experience with the behavior? 9. How long do these reactions last? 10. How often does the behavior typically happen? Hourly, daily, or weekly? 11. What is the typical timing of the day, the week, the month, or the year of the behavior? 12. What do the people around you usually do when the behavior is happening? Assessment, the social worker-client relationship. The eco-behavioral assessment is similar to functional behavioral analysis in that it considers the client's behavior in a broad context. It is different, however, in that it uses an eco-map to illustrate the particular domains with which a client interacts and focuses more on systems that are external to the client. From these behavioral assessments, the practitioner determines the reinforcers and triggers that are maintaining the problem behavior. This assessment leads to the planning step, in which the practitioner and the client construct concrete target behaviors, goals, that include attention to the antecedent conditions and contingencies required to bring about desired new behaviors. Intervention. The process of intervention in behavior theory is systematic and includes the following steps. 1. The client's problems are stated in behavioral terms. 2. Measurable outcomes related to the problem reduction are developed. And 3. The practitioner and client gather baseline data, its current occurrence on the problem behavior. Intervention. The steps required to reach problem resolutions are specific. 5. The client's personal and environmental resources for making changes are specified. Any other people will participate in interventions are identified and sought out for consultation, often to act as reinforcers. 6. Possible obstacles to goal achievement are identified in advance, and plans are made to minimize them. Intervention. 7. An appropriate intervention strategy is chosen with the participation of the client and with an emphasis on positive consequences for new behaviors. As a rule, behavioral practice focuses on rewarding positive behavior rather than punishing negative behavior whenever possible. 8. The practitioner, client, or other persons collect data about the client's activities. The client's behavior changes are documented regularly. 9. The client and practitioner evaluate the intervention process regularly, comparing baseline conditions to current counts of desired behavior. And finally, 10. The intervention ends after the client achieves his or her goals and demonstrates the likelihood of goal maintenance. Applied behavior analysis. It's worth emphasizing here that a form of behavioral intervention known as applied behavior analysis, ABA, has become a standard intervention for social workers. Any avoidable antecedents for a problem behavior are removed, and desirable behaviors are broken down into their component parts and introduced to the client. Positive reinforcement is often then provided for each successful performance of the behavior. This intervention is further distinguished by its intensity. Spirituality and behavior theory. Behaviorism is focused on concrete, observable events. It gives no particular attention to ideas related to spirituality or purpose in life. These topics are often abstract and refer to a person's internal belief systems, which are out of the realm of a practitioner's concern. The behavioral practitioner is not concerned with any aspects of mental life, except as they are represented in external behavior. Attention to social justice. Behavior theorists argue that their methodology can be used effectively to promote a range of social justice issues. Social workers themselves possess important collective reinforcers, such as knowledge and resources. While the term manipulation, as used in behavior theory, has a negative connotation for many social workers, compared with collaboration, many practitioners misunderstand the philosophical basis of behaviorism. Behavioral methods, if effective, increase a client's skill in influencing their environment, a large part of which may be provided by other people. But it does not teach them to manipulate this environment in an insidious or unfair way. Behaviorism requires that the social worker become familiar with the life experiences of oppressed and culturally diverse groups because they need to understand each person's unique set of reinforcers. Behavioral practitioners also routinely use outside resources, such as information about resources and opportunities for new activities, to help the client learn and to change their behavior. Evidence of effectiveness. Behavioral interventions maintain popularity among practitioners, administrators, and third-party payers because their effectiveness is often supported by quantitative research methodologies. Though behavior theory cannot necessarily claim superiority on this basis, although its proponents might do so, its effectiveness in many instances can be concretely demonstrated. Criticisms of the theory. Behavior therapy has been described as empowering because it educates clients about the processes of change that can be generalized. It is sometimes seen as dehumanizing, overlooking aspects of life that may be important to the client. A second criticism of behaviorism is that its intervention rely on controlled environment in which a client's reinforcements or punishments must be consistently applied to create and sustain new behaviors. It is often difficult for social workers to plan for and monitor such consistency of reinforcement when a client interacts with many people in many life domains. We are commonly unaware of the range of stimuli and reinforcers that govern our behaviors. At times, these are discoverable, but they can also remain unclear. For these reasons, behaviorism, while an effective intervention for many client problems, has fallen short of its original goal to become a generalizable science of human behavior. Summary. Behavioral theory offers an approach to direct practice that focuses on observable concrete client behaviors and outcomes rather than internal mental processes. Behaviorism is preeminent among practice theories in its attention to empirical research on its effectiveness. Though often criticized by social workers for being overly reductionist, its emphasis on monitoring human actions has been adapted within other theoretical perspectives. When practiced by social workers, behavior theory is often combined with cognitive theory. Classroom activities. Behaviorists assert that interventions should focus, when possible, on reinforcing rather than punishing behaviors. 1. Why is this? 2. Think about client populations, such as substance abusers or aggressive children. And 3. How can social workers develop interventions that reinforce certain client behaviors while extinguishing others? Homework assignment. Behaviors identify negative thought patterns and disrupt them before they lead to negative behavior. If you are depressed, for example, a vicious cycle can develop between your harmful thoughts, unhealthy emotions, and damaging behavior patterns. Try to stop this feedback loop. Look out for the running commentary going on in your head. Don't take it at face value. Examine your thoughts and realize that they are just thoughts. This can help stop unhelpful thinking patterns and allow you to make a conscious effort to change them. Homework assignment. through restructuring steps. 1. Use a thought diary to record your thoughts and emotions at various points throughout your day. 2. Write down automatic thoughts, thoughts that provide a running commentary of our experiences. 3. Write down all emotions related to these thoughts and rate them in terms of intensity on a scale of 0 to 100. Typically, there's more than one, and no one emotion has the same intensity. 4. Write down reactions to your experience.